Becoming a mom has also made me understand how hard it must have been for my mom to know that she was leaving me. It's almost like I grieved what my mom must have been thinking and going through in the process of knowing that she was going to leave me.
Welcome to the Unaparent podcast, the place that delivers deeply human stories about the unapparent truths of parenting. My name is Katia Lindor, and I am your host. Join us as we debunk myths surrounding parenthood and provide an empathetic, judgment-free space for parents and parents to be. We hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unaparent podcast. Today we have a guest who, her name is Allie, and she and I actually go way back, even though we lost touch since we were, kids. We went to camp together, summer camp. And thanks to social media, we've been able to kind of keep up with each other's lives at a distance, even though I haven't seen her since we were children. And now we find ourselves both mothers. And so Allie posted on her Instagram, I think, was it on Mother's Day? It was recently.
It sure was, yes.
I saw a
Day.
post about being a parentless parent, and in this particular instance, a motherless mother, young mother. And I, even though can't speak on my behalf of anything to do with that experience, I thought it would be such a great episode for other moms and parents who could perhaps relate to Allie's story. And so I'm just opening this platform for Allie to speak a little bit about her experience and share what she quotes in her posts as just something unfathomable for the rest of us. And I mean, that's so accurate. It is unfathomable for me, at least, to really imagine what my life, especially now as a young new mom, would be like without my own mother. So Allie, I thank you for coming on and being vulnerable with us today and sharing your experience and your story. So welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I feel so grateful that you've given me this opportunity to kind of speak out because also, like I said in that post, it's a very unspoken thing. Because it is unfathomable to be 26 years old and not have either of your parents. I mean, even if they dead or alive, whether they choose to be in your life or not, it's very unfathomable because you're in I feel like all of life is transitional, but when you're in your mid-20s, it's like you're in this limbo of like being young adult, but also trying to like get your stuff together for your 30s. And so to kind of be like not lost without guidance, because obviously I have people that I look up to, but to not have those people that I was born to trust and I know will always have my back can be confusing, to put it lightly. So thank you so much for also not only myself, but whoever else is out there that could really use just like a connection with somebody who's been through something similar as them. So I'm super grateful. Thank you. Yes. So I guess I will start off just kind of like with my life story, how I grew up. I'm from Kentucky, very conservative, I do have a lot of people around me that look like me and have, mixed backgrounds, but still not very accepting of that idea. So that was a little bit of something that my family had to endure as I was born and as my mom dated my dad, just the confusion of an interracial relationship by itself. So then when I was born in Lexington. I lived with both my parents. My parents had a great relationship. They obviously had some, rifts and tiffs like normal young parents do. I think my parents were 24 and 25 when they had me. But yeah, and then when I was about 4 years old, maybe 5, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had it for most of my memories. She had breast cancer, and not to say that my only memories of her bald or whatever, but I knew she was always sick. She went into remission for a little bit. She ended up passing away when I was 9 years old. So it came back and it had metastasized into her lymph nodes and all of that. I remember them even telling me before she was going to pass, or before she did pass, that she was going to. Um, so yeah, that was 9 years old, starting to go through puberty. It was very heavy. It was, again, confusing, but I almost in my life had like already not knew it was going to happen, but had suspected it. And I have very predictive dreams as well. So I had a dream even that my mom was going to get taken away from me before she passed away. So yeah, so that was a rough time. I ended up after that not living with my dad, and I lived with my grandparents, my mom's parents. This is a whole other realm of stories that I could go into with all of that. And then my grandma, actually, my mom's mom, also ended up getting breast cancer. So I ended up, yes, and this is about the time when I started to go to camp. I think this was maybe like the summer before I went to camp for the first time. Because I believe I was in like 12, I started first year intermediate. Like I didn't do junior, first time on senior side, and that was my first summer.
Right, 12.
Yes, exactly. So I ended up moving with my aunt, my mom's sister, who is out here where I live now in Lake Tahoe. I live in Reno now, but I lived in Lake Tahoe. They're like 30 minutes apart. I came out here. My aunt was like, "You've got to go to camp, girl. You're going to camp." So I went to camp. That was amazing. Obviously, I grew up. I think when I was about 2018, my father then all of a sudden got super, super sick. And I had also reconnected with my dad in between this time. I went a while without seeing him, but we had reconnected. I'd spent some time back home in Kentucky with him, which I'm super grateful for. We had an awesome relationship, talked all the time. And then he very suddenly passed away. Like, it was December 18th of 2018, and it was sudden. Like, he was diagnosed with cancer the day before he passed away.
Oh my God.
It was very, very, like, I flew home the next day, he passed. We did the services, and it's strange because obviously I've lost both my parents, but it's been longer since I've lost my mom, and so the hole is a little bit deeper. Whereas with my dad, I also have more memories with him. I have more photos of him and with him, and I have more just like interactions with him, so the hole doesn't feel as deep. You know what I'm saying? Have you lost? You both of your parents are still alive, right?
Yes. I've only ever lost grandparents whom I was very close to, but not nearly the same as parents.
Still very, very heavy though. Like my grandma ended up passing away from breast cancer, and since I lived with her too, so she was like another mother figure to me, and that was also just as painful. I feel like time almost makes it more painful because it's scary that you're forgetting things. And like, I'm at the point now where I don't necessarily remember my mom's voice or like her smell, or so it is getting a little bit more like, who is she? It's more of just like a figure of my imagination, and I know she's not, but that's kind of where it does get occasionally. I also want to preface that sometimes my speaking about this is very not lighthearted, but a little bit, because it is my reality, and it can be a little bit jarring for people that haven't experienced it. But I'm like, it's what I live every day, so sometimes I do have to kind of make light of it.
Right. I mean, you do what you can to survive.
Right. We got to keep pushing. So yeah, so then I'm in high school, I graduate high school, my dad passes away. I kind of go off on my own. I start doing hair school, all of this. I meet my partner now. We actually dated in high school for a while, which is so funny. And then took about like a 5-6 year break and then reconnected. And I've always known that because my parents have passed away, that I want my children to be at my wedding. So that was just something that I even had talked to him about previously, and he was like totally chill with. But that's something that is just super important to me, to have like a piece of them there, like a physical piece. And so then we decided to have a baby and planned for Joa, and I had Joa. And all throughout my pregnancy, I felt like I grieved again, like I grieved my mom again, which was very, it was different because obviously I was 9 years old when my mom passed away versus 25. And so, or 24, however old I was. So it was very, it's different to grieve your mom, no, like when you actually understand everything,
Right.
and you know kind of what happened. So that was, it was almost, I felt lost a lot, just because that one person that everyone thinks to call with questions, or how was your pregnancy with me? I'm also an only child too, so I don't have any siblings, um, or anybody that's lived the same reality as me that is in my inner circle. So I felt a lot of, searching for that, like maternal figure, and like my midwife, for example, like my, like I would call her and message her and text her and just like with anything and everything, because I just felt like, I don't know, it's a sense of, like I said in my post too, just like you don't have that innate trust in anyone else. Like,
Mhm.
and obviously you can forge it, you can create it, and that's the goal, is like obviously you want to have all these types of connections. That's what we as humans need to survive, even. But when you have your parents and you have good parents that were there for you, it's almost like there's just a whole nother piece of you elsewhere, and you're constantly searching for it.
Mhm.
And so my pregnancy, when I got pregnant, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Um, to the point where I was, my aunt, she gave me for my push present a reading with a medium. And that was the most, connected I'd felt to my mom or my dad in years, like
Oh,
years, which was super cool and super eye opening, and also almost made me relax a little bit. Um, but yeah, becoming a mom has also made me understand how hard it must have been for my mom to know that she was leaving me. Um,
yeah.
because it's unimaginable, like the physical pain, and everyone says it, but you don't know until you're actually a mom,
Mhm.
like, or a parent. The, like when my child hurts, I feel it,
Yeah.
and so I could not imagine. It's almost like I grieved what my mom must have been thinking and going through in the process of knowing that she was going to leave me,
Right.
which is so heavy, like so heavy. And she wasn't, my mom was probably like early 30s.
Mhm.
So it's not like she was like, okay, yeah, my time's coming. It was not, that was not in her plan. That was not a part of the cards that she thought she was being dealt. And so it, it was almost like grieving from her perspective, if
Yeah.
that makes sense,
Oh, it does. I mean, I think
And
to
I don't want
now,
anything to
yeah.
get lost either. Like, I miss my dad too.
Hmm.
Like, 'cause some people are like, what about your dad? I miss him too. But like I said, it's been only been 5 years. It's been almost 20. Like, in 3 years, it'll be 20 years since my mom has passed. And I'm a whole new person now. Like, and so it is just a different type of, snap. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, what you're saying about grieving what your mom was going through, it's so real because even though, I haven't experienced that, it has crossed my mind like I never want to leave my child, I never want
yeah.
my child to have to grow up without me or her dad. So it's
Right,
just
right,
those thoughts do cross your mind because, we always, at least I, as a parent now, think of like the worst case scenarios at times.
right.
And I think of, my husband and I, we have this rule where we don't fly together without our kid. So if
Mm-hmm.
we're going somewhere, we're either all together or we're on separate flights. And
Right.
it's something real that comes up in, when you become a parent, you're just like, you would do anything for your kid and you don't want them to experience any type of pain or
Harm,
just
yeah.
harm. Exactly. So, I cannot fathom what, your mom went through and what you were going through. So Yeah, that's really heavy. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go take a look back because the other thing that is so funny about this, like grief and just being, because obviously when you're older, like older people, all of their friends, they don't have parents. It's far more common. It's a circle of life. But
Hmm.
right now, at the age I'm in, I kind of go in and out of like being in touch with it as well.
Hmm.
So one reason that I was slightly nervous for this podcast is because I like obviously when Mother's Day comes around, it's hitting me. Like my brain is going, I'm thinking of all the things, but then all of a sudden, like that, it's like I can't even, I'm barely in touch with like the grief, the connection with my mom, whatever. So it's very like touch and go as well. So it can be like full stop, like nothing's hitting you, you're living life like your parents are fully alive. And then the next moment, it's like, oh my gosh, everything comes crashing down. And even 20 years later, like I still have days. Ethan, my partner, he knows, he's like, okay, like just go take your bath. Like it's okay. Like he'll like send me like sometimes like just like little reminders or like memories or whatever of like things that I've posted, and he acknowledges like the loss that I have and stuff like that. So he knows as well, like today's a day. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm going to be a whole nother person and everything's fine, but today is a day. So I'm going to go back. I'm just going to look at this post too. Yeah, because I think one thing that I did want to talk about is like holidays
Hmm.
and birthdays and Mother's Day, for example. Like I said in my post, it's a huge catch-22, especially being a mom now. Before it was like all focused on my mom. Like I would plant flowers with my family on Mother's Day. We would look through photos, all of that. But with now that I'm a mom, Mother's Day is like obviously a celebration of me and my relationship with my daughter and all of that. Even Father's Day, same thing, of my partner, his relationship, like all of that. But it's like also I find myself, there's a fine line between like really allowing myself to marinate in how I'm feeling and then getting over like just sad about the day,
Hmm.
because it's I think about Mother's Day. I don't know why it's just Mother's Day either, like not Christmas or anything, but Mother's Day, I think about it almost all year round. Like just how, like what I'm going to do next year. And then I usually end up not doing anything and just like do it going out to eat or something. But like how I'm going to like remember my mom or how I'm going to talk about my mom to Joa or any of those things. And then the day comes around, I usually find myself doing something very lax. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so I just want to say to people that it's okay. Like, however you feel, you need to allow yourself to be on these days, whether it be Christmas because your mom's favorite holiday is Christmas, or think or whatever, your birthday, your mom's birthday, the anniversary of the death, whatever. You can be and feel however you need to be and feel. There should be no expectation, and usually the expectation comes from ourselves onto ourselves, like, oh, we aren't remembering them well enough. We aren't, but it's just they know. I don't know what anybody believes in, but I believe in something. I believe in a God and I believe in spirit world and I believe in that our bodies are just our bodies and our souls are far more and deeper than that. And so I know that my family's around, and if some days I just need to sit down and eat crappy food all day and do nothing and lay in bed with Joe or whatever, that's what I need to do. And don't make yourself feel more grief over not doing a well enough job. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I just want, because sometimes I even put the pressure on myself that I'm not, I granted my daughter's also only 18 months old, but I'm not like teaching her enough about her grandparents and things like that. And she's gonna know. She's gonna know. And that's all you've got to do is just release it and do and be how you need to do and be, and take it day by day, especially if you've just lost your parent or something like that. It's day by day is all you can do. And it obviously doesn't feel normal right now. It doesn't feel like it should be the way it is. And that's because it shouldn't. It's not like, it's not normal, especially if you're young. But just take it day by day. And I'm always here if you need connection or somebody to talk to or somebody to even just relate to. Because sometimes I don't want somebody to be like, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Like sometimes I just want somebody to be like, that's shit. That sucks. Like I don't really want sympathy all the time. Sometimes I just want somebody to be like, you're right. Like, damn, that's
Mhm.
really awful. So my thing to everybody out there is just do celebrate these holidays how you feel the need to. Don't put pressure on yourself. We like, if you believe in the spirit and the soul, then they are there and they know that you love them. And yeah, I mean, that's all I can leave it at that one.
That's
But because
beautiful. Yeah.
holidays are hard. Like they, and like one Christmas will be great and the next Christmas will be like awful. And that's just the way it is. But speaking from like almost 20 years past losing my mom, I hate to say it almost feels bad to say it gets better too, but it does. And then you'll have the day where it just hits you. And it's such a, I guess, just a catch 22. Like I said, like each day is so awesome, but then that day hits you and you're like, God, please help me, you
Hmm.
know?
I'm just gonna come in and say right now
Mm-hmm.
that I mean, again, I'm never gonna pretend to know, what any of this is like. But as parents, now that I'm a mom, I know that one of my biggest fears is, my daughter going through hardship, right? Um, but I know that all I would ever want for her is for her to be happy, right? So I'm sure like wherever your mom is, that's all she wanted for you. So I think you can at
Mm.
least I know it's just hard. I can't even imagine, but it's something
Yeah.
that I think when my grandmother passed, she was
Yeah.
older, so it was more like the way life was supposed to be because when you get a certain age, you pass away, and that's just how life is. And as you say, I believe in the body's just a body, and the rest is
Yeah.
just we're spirit, we're soul, and that lives on, right? But my grandmother
Mm-hmm.
always said, I just want you guys to live a good life. I've had a good life, and even though your mom's was way too short. At the end of the day, all we want for our offspring and our, children, grandchildren is for them to, find their happiness and their path. And I think you're doing an incredible job, and I'm sure your mom would just be
Thank
incredibly
you.
happy and proud of you.
Thank you. That's something that, so I want to throw in a little thing that was a feel good thing for me during this. So when I actually spoke to the medium before
Mm-hmm.
I gave birth, it was literally 7 days exactly before I gave birth. And I also believe in like synchronicities and stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the medium had told me that my mom had said, and this is the closest I've ever felt to my mom ever, because sometimes, especially when it's been 20 years, or how long has it been since your grandma passed?
2013. I'm not sure. I haven't done the math, but
Yeah, so 10,
10 years. Yeah,
10
20.
this
Yeah.
year, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So once it gets to be that long, it's almost like you can feel less connected over time. Because, like I said, you like start to forget things, or, you don't remember as much, or, just certain things start to fade away. And the medium had told me that my mom said that I would always be able to see her through my daughter's eyes. And Joa has my
Mm-hmm.
mother's eyes to a T. Like, not her dad. Her dad
Wow.
has green eyes. I obviously have brown eyes. Like, her eyes are so blue to this day, and that is my biggest. Before I gave birth, that was a huge blessing to me, because it was something that I was so secure into before she was already born. Not that I knew she was going to have blue eyes, but I knew that I would be able to feel my mom through her and all of that. And when she was born, and they were super, super blue. Also, Joe was technically born on the day my mom passed away as well. So
Wow.
Joe was born on November 30th at like 11:20 p.m. and my mom passed away on December 1st at like 2 a.m. ish. And that was in Kentucky. So 3 hours later, it's
Right.
very like it's almost to the T, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so those kind of things, yes, being a mom to Joa has almost made everything slightly more painful, because I understand more, but also like it's the biggest blessing ever. Like I feel like she is a portal to especially children. They're so innocent. Their
Mm-hmm.
minds are like their imagination and everything is so wild and not closed off or capped or anything that I just feel like she's the greatest portal to the most incredible souls that I've lost, like, oh my gosh, in the entire world. And it's crazy because while I do feel also a little bit nervous, and you might feel the same way with Kalina, that I want to share everything about them to her. Like, you probably want to tell Kalina all about your grandma. At the same time, I'm like, she probably already knows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she knows. And not only that, but she probably feels it. Like, so my mom and dad have passed away, but also my mom's entire side of her family has passed away. So my grandma, my grandpa, my mom had a little brother who passed away in 2020. My grandpa passed away in 2020. And so my aunt, my mom's sister, is the only one alive, like in their immediate family. So she's lost both parents and both siblings. And so I just feel like most of my people are up in heaven anyways. She's got to have an idea about it, and she's got to know. And it's a more powerful, it's not just on my shoulders to make sure that she knows all about them and understands them. They've got a job too. Y'all are still moving up there, so we've got to, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So it's been also like the greatest, while it's more painful because I understand everything, it's also like I'm like, you are you're magic. Like, she's magic to me. So I'm like, you know everything. You're connected to them. Like, sometimes I feel like she's looking through me and just, she can see way more than I can. Um, and I love that about her. I think she's going to be very in touch with her grandparents, even though she's never met them here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is a special thing too. I wish, I don't know. Do you feel like you have, like, do you obviously spent a lot of time with your grandma and stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
Did you, like, do you feel like your family, like, keeps her memory alive
Yes.
well and stuff?
In fact, her house that, where my mom grew up in, we've sort of kept it exactly the way she had it, in the sense that we just feel her, her just
Right.
it because that house, she loved that house so much. And everything about it is just, it encompasses, my grandmother, like the hammock and the way,
No.
she kept certain things, and the nature around it. And I mean, that's just like one aspect, like a physical aspect, but it's so much more than that, because we really do
Mm-hmm.
like feel her there, her presence.
The
And even though
energy,
both
yeah.
my grandparents have passed, they both passed, but it was more of like that special bond with my grandpa passed when I was a little younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent more time with my grandmother. And so, yeah, it's very much, I mean, I know that I feel her presence in that house every day that I go there, and we've kept it for that reason. I mean, I
Yeah,
can't get
that's
rid of
so
that
nice
house.
that you guys have, yeah, that's so nice that you guys have like a tangible,
Hmm.
piece of her. I feel like my family, not that we haven't done the best job of keeping my mom's memory alive, but
Hmm.
just we didn't I feel like the sickness, like the cancer and stuff, like what comes with being sick with cancer, medical
Yeah.
bills, the stress of all of that. I feel like that kind of overshadowed the preservation of her,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? So like I know that my mom created a baby book for me when I was born, and I have no idea where that is.
Mm-hmm.
And the only photos really that I have, I know my aunt has a ton of photos, but the only photos that I have like in my possession are from my dad's mom that she had kept over time. And so I think another part of me that hurts a little bit is that we don't have, like, I don't have all of those things. Whereas my dad, even, like, I have some of my dad's clothes and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Something that's super sweet is my mom had the best friends as she was growing up, like, the best friends. Like, oh my gosh, they literally, I was technically their children as well when my mom passed away, even though I still had a dad and tons of family that loved me. But she had the best friends. And so not that long ago, I mean it was probably like a few years ago, but to me that's not that long ago. I had one of her friends like send me a shirt that was my mom's, that we had worn for my mom during like a breast cancer walk or whatever, but it was my mom's shirt throughout the walk. And oh my gosh, just the greatest gift ever. It's almost like it was like scratching an itch. I know that sounds very like small and minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but like it's like you crave almost the connection and the a memory to come back or whatever it might be. And so like just getting that in my mailbox one day was, oh, it's just the little things. And I feel like when you've experienced death of someone super close to you, because even though you say you haven't lost somebody, the fact that you were as close to your grandma as you were, and then you lost her is like, some people haven't even experienced that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I live in a town that's not sheltered, but it's a mountain town. It's a small town. Most of the kids have grown up here their whole lives. Their grandparents grew up here. They been skiing since they were 1 years old, like all of this stuff. And so they have very like deep rooted family ties. And I just like, it's very weird to not only not have parents, but also like not really have, because I don't have siblings or anything either, not have that family tie. So even in my small town, people do have these deep rooted family ties, but a lot of people haven't, they have not, like, death is unimaginable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, losing your parents is even more so, but like any type of death to them is, we've had some friends in our high school pass away and different things like that, but just like losing someone super close to you is unimaginable. So I've had very little connection to anybody of that sort. When I was 12 years old and I first moved here, we did have a thing at my school called Grief Group, which was basically, I think there was like 7 of us in the entire school that had lost someone close to us. And I think there were 2 or 3 of us where it was our parents. The others, it was like a cousin or something of the sort. So that was like the only little snippet I got of like a connection with somebody who had a similar experience as me. But also living in a small town, people are less likely to reach out. It sounds weird,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like in cities and people in places where there's more diversity, not only in just like race and culture and stuff, but also just in like life experience, people are more open to be vulnerable and speak out or reach out or whatever. Whereas in a small town, it's very like far less likely that
Mm-hmm.
something like that happens. So going all throughout high school and stuff, it was, I mean, occasionally I'd have a friend that'd lose a parent or something, and like I would reach out to them, but very little, communication on it as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah. I guess
Um,
that's
so
how,
that's
like,
another reason.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was going to
No,
say, I
you're good.
think
You're good.
that's generally how, like, taboos are formed because, like, in small towns, it's like people are afraid to talk about things, that are deep or that are traumatic. Or, I mean, in general, I had an episode where I talked with another mom who had a pregnancy loss and how just grief and loss in general is like not really a topic that society is
Mm-mm.
comfortable with. Um, and it's a very natural part of life at some point, right? Obviously, some situations are
Right.
just really tragic and traumatic, and that's not like the way life should have been, right? But
Right.
loss is part of life, unfortunately, or it's just it's inevitable if we
The
live long
cycle.
enough to
Right.
lose people close to us. And it's I gotta say, it is very frightening to think about losing someone so close to you, right? But
Hmm.
there's really not a lot that is said about it. You kind of just go through it on your own, it seems like, and you figure it out. And
Yes.
some people just need that connection, and need someone to be like, hey, I feel you, and this sucks, and it's gonna be hard for some time, and that's okay. You don't have to like power
Right.
through and like be good the next day, because that's just not realistic.
Yeah, and to touch on that too is like you said, you almost just go through it yourself. I something that I thought about before we even jumped on was that a lot of my grief, it almost does feel like my parents just live in my conscience, like in my grief, and the fact that I've lost my parents and so many other people super close to me is just kind of in my conscience because it is so unspoken. And I do, like, whenever I make these like venting or vulnerable posts on Instagram, obviously it's more so for me because I feel like I just need to write and get it out. But at the same time, it is almost a reach out too to like, hey guys, has anybody is anybody here with me? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
anybody like swimming in this same situation? Like, what's going on? And I will say on Mother's Day was like the first time I actually got, people like, yes, like reaching out and kind of sharing their stories as well, which was very comforting.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it ever gets less confusing because it really doesn't. If anything, it's just like one more person passes away or something, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's the cycle of life. It's inevitable. It's going to happen to everybody, unfortunately. And so we need to talk about it, especially as parents. Like, it's hard to navigate, especially, okay, so I have tried to obviously forge these relationships with other people, be it my partner's parents or friends' parents or, aunts or uncles or whatever. But it's never the same. And it's never the same, especially if it's like in-laws or something like that. Obviously some of us can be blessed with the greatest in-laws in the world, but it's like nothing really ever fills the
Replaces.
hole.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I feel like the only way we can do ourselves a service is to, one, not continuously keep it in our conscious and keep it to ourselves, which for some people that might be fine and awesome. But like I said, as humans, we need connection to survive and to thrive. And so I challenge anybody who's been through, I mean, that really any hard experience, but especially being a parentless parent, to reach out and to try and call on people that you trust and that might have been in similar situations, because that's where I find the most peace. It's not in for trying to find a replacement, which is a horrible way to put it, but that is what it is, or find something to validate that part of you, but to just, I find that it would be more successful to reach out to people that have been through a similar situation than you or as you, because that is what's almost going to satisfy that confusing part, if that makes sense. And not that you'll find answers, but just to bounce off of somebody. I found that in the most recent weeks of even just connecting with people since I've posted that post, I've felt more comfortable in what I'm going through. And not that I found like I've found the way, but I can navigate it a little bit better. I know people that have been through similar things that, like, we can just be like, hey girl, Mother's Day coming up, like, not a easy one for us, like, I'm thinking about you. I will say I do have a very close friend who, our moms were best friends growing up, and she has also lost both of her parents,
Mm-hmm.
but she is not a parent yet, so she doesn't really understand that portion. But when it comes to Mother's Day and Father's Day or whatever, our birthdays, we always are reaching out. And that is something that I have found not only makes me feel like I'm doing a good job of, checking back in and remembering my parents and just giving a little head nod to them, but also inside, I'm like, we get each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm with her, I'm not as lost as I feel everywhere else. Like we're on the same page.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience with us. I hope that this has been a way that hopefully will forge more connections of people that get it, that you don't need to explain it to, and that'll be like, yeah, girl, I got you.
Yeah, and
So,
maybe in the future when I also like I kind of want to reach back out to you when I'm feeling a little bit more in touch too, because like I said, it's ebbs and flows of when I'm like really kind of marinating in my feelings and emotions about it and can put it out into words. I'd love to reach out to you and maybe give you little clips or whatever to just post or whatever that are just better verbiage and better, spoken out and more
mhm.
well thought out because it ebbs and flows for
Well,
me
I'm
for
sure
sure.
that's how it is for most people, I mean, it's
Yes.
the reality. So, being raw and authentic, I think that's how you reach people because they're like, that's how I feel. Sometimes I can't put it into words because truly maybe there aren't words for these kinds of
Yeah,
emotions. And so,
exactly.
yeah, again, I thank you for coming and sharing your story. And yeah, reach out to me again. I'm gonna, end our session today here. I say session as if it was therapy, more like our episode. um, and I really thank you. I didn't expect to get emotional myself, right? I'm pregnant. That
Oh.
might be a little bit of that
Oh
going on
yeah, yeah.
there.
Oh my gosh. Well, how did that totally went over my head. Oh my gosh. How
Yeah,
far
no.
along are you?
I am 35 weeks right now. So by the time this episode is
Oh
aired, I
girl.
might already have my next child. So
Your
I
little
will,
baby.
yeah, I'll update everyone on that when that happens. So again,
Awesome.
thank you, Allie, for coming on and
Thank you.
being vulnerable with us. So until next
Yes.
time. Gracias, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Unaparent podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe as we release a new episode at least every month with an exciting new guest. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram for all the Unaparent content you never knew you needed.